The Hero of Oaton by That Guy Vex. Lunaverse episode 16. Chapter 2. Memories and Compilations. 1 year ago. Trixie stared out of the train window at the passing landscape, chin and hoof, scowl on face, liquor at the ready. Irritation clawed at her, causing her to tap one of her hind hooves repeatedly as she waited for the train to make its appointed stop. Soon enough she could get this pointless and annoying error over and done with, and back to Camelot. Her first order of business upon doing so being finding a way to get back at bearing flouting for this indignation. Being reduced to a delivery pony! Okay, so perhaps she overstretched her ambitions by trying to eavesdrop on the Baron's dealings, hoping to dig up some kind of dirt she could use sometime in the future when she wasn't a political nonentity. Luna was teaching her how politics work, so the princess could hardly be surprised if Trixie was trying to put some of those lessons to use. Though, granted, Luna hadn't actually taught her that sneaking onto a baron's property to try and listen in onto his dealings was a good idea. That was all Trixie. Trixie had been shocked to discover the baron was no slouch at divination or warding spells. She was equally dismayed to discover that invisibility didn't do much against dark dogs, who had annoyingly keen hearing. For the record, Trixie had decided she very much hated guard dogs. First of all, who kept guard dogs in this day and age? Furthermore, who, upon wishing to employ the use of said guard dogs on a suspected invisible intruder, says, "Release the hounds." Very flouting, apparently, because that was exactly what he had done. It was thus in a horrible poor taste as far as Trixie was concerned. She supposed she should count herself fortunate said guard dogs had been called off after she was cornered and her invisibility spell had faltered. Trixie's endurance and concentration in keeping such a spell while under duress, being chased by guard dogs for example, still needed a lot of work. In either an act of mercy or contempt, probably both, Trixie reflected, the Baron didn't do more than request she do him a small favor in exchange for forgetting the whole affair and not having her thrown in jail for trespassing. The favor in question being this inane courier task to some 2-bit nowhere village. What was the name of it again? Trixie didn't recall, but since it was apparently the only settlement for miles from the way station she was getting off at, she supposed it didn't matter. I do this, go home, and first things first, I start refining my invisibility spell. Find a way to conceal all sound as well as my body. Perhaps I can layer 2 spells together without them interfering, maybe even employing each other. But how to bypass words designed to detect magic auras? "Anything you need, miss?" asked the train attendant, a friendly-looking white earth pony mare with a short mane of rosy red hair. "No," Trixie said curtly, not even looking at the attendant, save for the corner of her eye, taking a long pull of her flask of bourbon. She felt slightly less annoyed as the liquid burned its way into her stomach and filled her with a pleasant warmth, despite the chill of the morning. Since moving to Canterlot and becoming Princess Luna's apprentice, her sleep schedule had become adjusted to one that generally saw her going to sleep around this time. Luna was a nocturnal being, and Trixie had gotten used to following suit. So, Trixie was normally asleep during the day and active at night. Still, being away this time of morning wasn't the norm for her, as she was more than a little cranky, hence the bourbon. Admittedly, the alcohol was a recent thing for her, having just come of age not long ago. She had become fond of the warm buzz that came with drink. However, it relaxed her. Trixie generally felt like she was in constant need of relaxing. "Well, okay, if you're sure," said the attendant, a friendly smile dropping and edging away for Trixie to go to see the few other ponies in the passenger car. Trixie paid her no mind, continuing to nurse her flask of liquor and fuming over the general injustices of the world. By her side, a simple small box sat, wrapped in a brown parchment. She didn't care what she was delivering, or why, and half suspected the package itself was a hoax, just set up as an excuse to send her some pointless trip away from Canterlot. She only remembered what she was supposed to deliver to a pony named Saw something. Sawblade, that was it. Worked for the Huffington Lumber Guild. At least, she thought that was what the Baron had said. It was getting harder to think clearly as the bourbon did its work. By the time the train had stopped at the way station, a simple stone platform in the middle of nowhere, Trixie was swaying slightly as she haphazardly flew on her hat and cape and carried the packets in a field of magic next to her as she disembarked. As the train pulled away, Trixie looked about. There was plain dirt road alongside the tracks, with another branching off into the distance towards a dense clump of shadows she figured was a forest. A single post of wood sign sat at the cross-section between the two roads, reading a single word, Oaton. It's a sign pointing toward the forest. And so, the great and powerful Trixie, apprentice to Princess Luna herself, begins her epic quest to deliver pointless mail to a pointless town in the back end of Equestria. Taking another swig of her drink, she began trotting down the road, a particularly dramatic wind billowing across the scene and causing her main cape to flutter so. Present day. Okay. Can you just get to the important part where you did the hero thing? Raindrops said, as Trixie described the way some wind or something was blowing her cape. Trixie rolled her eyes, dropping the small telekinesis spell she had been using to simulate wind blowing her cape and mane. I need to set the scene, and what's wrong with a little dramatic description and exposition? I like it, said Lyra, though Trixie wasn't sure the unicorn had been listening until she spoke up, as Lyra's eyes had been closed and she looked just so relaxed, laying back like that, practically sinking into Trixie's couch. Can't get to the chorus without the introduction. Carry on. I want to hear the whole story too, but we shouldn't keep Bushel upstairs for too long. Don't worry, this won't take much longer, said Trixie. My memory of events gets fuzzy not long after I arrived in Oaton. It was just about sunset when I got there. 1 year ago. Again! Oaton was tiny. Hamlet didn't cover it. It was less than a dozen thatched-roof buildings, and one just slightly larger than the others clustered along the bank. What Trixie had imagined was supposed to be a river, but right now looked to be a little more than dry stretch of mud. Across the river was a series of small fields, all of them looking forlornly bare of crops, despite it being prime planting season. Gazing at her empty flask, she sympathizing with the fields. Nothing good ever comes from being dry. Driving down the dirt road that led straight through the center of the cluster of buildings, she barely noticed the shouting and yelling going on in the middle of town, until she was right on top of the argument. Don't you understand? We need that river to keep our field irrigated. We don't got a big well to water them and keep ourselves from dying of thirst. I understand perfectly. You seem to merely lack an understanding to the extent of which I care. There's, 30 ponies in this so-called town? You shouldn't have any trouble moving to a more populated area. This is our home. We're not letting you drive us out of it. We'll fight if we have to. Is that so? Our operation is supported by very important ponies from Canterlot. Do you think, even if you did fight us, that there would be no repercussions from the law? We have every legal right to be here. Trixie peered at the two arguing ponies, headed by two ponies of near equal size if very different disposition and dress. One, an earth pony with a dark green coat and sandy-colored mane, wearing a wide-brimmed straw hat, was practically smoking at his nostrils in anger. By contrast, the other pony, a violet unicorn with a painfully bright blue and neatly trimmed mane, wearing a bowler cap and tie, was icy calm, and seemed not even remotely concerned with the other pony's ire. A dozen ponies, almost all of them Earth tribe, were gathered behind the big green one, while behind the violet unicorn there were half a dozen ponies of all breeds, all wearing the same bowler-style cap as their apparent boss. The mood in the air was one of extreme tension, ready to boil over. Trixie walked right up into the middle of it, between the two lead ponies, and planted herself behind them, and held up her flask. If any pony in town possesses access to more alcohol, let us speak now, and forever gain the infinite gratitude of the great and powerful Trixie! Silence reigned for a moment, then was broken by the violet unicorn. Who in the blazes are you? Trixie just looked down, as if he were a slow fall. Trixie! Great and powerful. Try to keep up. Otherwise, this will take all night. I require a drink. I don't care what kind. I'm still experimenting with what I like. Also, I need to find a pony whose name is Saw Something. Can you do either of those things? I don't plan on doing any... Then you're of no use to me. You, the big green fellow with the nice hat. Do you know where a mare can find herself something to drink at least? The earth pony seemed to take taken aback. but looked at the violet unicorn, sputtering in impotent rage at Trixie's dismissal, and grinned at her. Well, might be I do, miss. We might not have much to do here at Oaton, but we got ale aplenty. Gonna need a drink myself after talking with this sod here. Watch your tone, chief, said the violet unicorn. I don't take insults lightly.
You're still here, Trixie said. I thought I dismissed you. Go now.
She waved a hoof at the other unicorn.
Shoo! I'm done with you.
I don't know who you think you are, Missy, but I don't let things like this slide. You'll be in a word of hurt if you don't adjust that attitude. I know some very important ponies in Canterlot. Trixie laughed, though it rather hurt her head to do so. She needed something to drink. Her buzz was wearing off, and this pony was starting to get on her nerves.
Important ponies? That's right. Allow me a moment to care about that. Okay, done. Now then, perhaps you should consider adjusting your attitude, as I know some rather important ponies as well. One in particular you may be quite familiar with. Princess Luna Equestrius, Shepherd of the Moon, Sovereign of the Three Times, etc., etc. I'm sure you must have heard of her. And to think you're threatening her personal apprentice and student. What will she do, I wonder, if she heard of that?
Probably nothing, actually. Luna was a very much stand-on-your-own four hooves kind of teacher, and wasn't likely to bail Trixie out of any trouble she got into. But Trixie didn't need to tell the other ponies that. Horse apples, was the violet unicorn's reply, but he noticed several of his subordinates muttering amongst themselves, plus the generally boisterous attitude of the Oaton villagers, and seemed quickly to decide this was ceasing to be worth as he snorted. In any case, Mayor Chief, neither of my ponies or our facilities are budging. We have permits. If you want us gone, you best take it up with the Count who owns the land. But good luck with getting an audience. Come on, Bucks, let's scram.
Yes, you do that,
Trixie said as the ponies and bowler caps trotted off out of town, heading north towards the forest. She let out a disdainful snort and turned her attention to the villagers, who gathered around him, most of them wearing smiles.
Well, that was just plumb refreshing. You sure got under that saw-blade's hide,
said one yellow earth pony mare with a wide grin.
You sure are fancy-looking, miss, if you don't mind my saying so. You ready for Canterlot?
Said another mare, a dusty brown earth pony with a shawl covering her mane. Is it true? Are you really the apprentice of Princess Luna herself? Asked an excitable young stallion, who looked a few years younger than Trixie. Trixie adored the attention, and beamed under the amount showered on her now. She drew herself up and puffily proud up, giving them all a very serious look.
But of course, few have the ear of the Princess of the Night as well as I. But I am all but her right hoof at the night court. She's teaching me the most mystical secrets of magic, and before long, I may be the greatest spellcaster in all of equine history, second only to Luna herself.
Now, would have been more of an accurate time for that unicorn. Sawblade? Wasn't that name relevant somehow? Trixie was sure she remembered later. To show up and shout horse apples. While it was true Luna was teaching her magic, and that, yes, Trixie was essentially the immortal Alicorn's apprentice, that actually didn't amount to a whole lot. Trixie had no influence or power whatsoever, hence her being regulated to a delivering pony status by a single baron's whim. Her magical abilities were also being exaggerated. She was certainly good at instinctively learning various spells, was rather talented in the school of illusion spells, but her own reserve of magical power was limited. She'd be a capable wizard one day, to be sure, but greatness in history? Not happening. Trixie had an audience now, and she was happy despite her fading buzz.
Now then, I seem to recall some ponies saying there being more alcohol.
Pleasant day.
Again!
I was surprised you got that drunk back then. I remember you telling me the morning after Pinkie Pie's party that was your first hangover, commented Carrot Top, as he brought out plates of food she'd been cooking, every pony taking a plate gratefully. Trixie looked away, face tinting a little red. Carrot Top was referring to Trixie's first day in Ponyville, and the subsequent party a certain pink pony had thrown for the town's new arrival. If the accounts could be believed, Trixie got particularly hammered that night, and the morning after had been correspondingly unpleasant. Trixie did recall telling Carrot Top that had been her first real hangover.
Like I said, my memory goes to pieces after accepting the mayor's offer for more alcohol. I don't even remember this much until Bushel jogged my memory. I think I tried to just bury the whole affair and forget it ever happened,
said Trixie, flooding her plate of food next to her, taking a bite of the sandwich. Which means,
if there was a hangover, which I don't doubt there was, I didn't remember it. Seems weird you do that. It was only a year ago, right? How do you forget something so quickly?
asked Ditzy. Trixie wasn't surprised Ditzy would ask that. The Grey Pegasus had a memory that Trixie suspected was near photographic. The idea of forgetting something, especially only a year past, was probably a foreign concept to some pony like Ditzy.
When you have a long list of unpleasant experiences, it becomes remarkably easy to selectively forget certain ones. At least it is for me. It probably helped that alcohol erased any clear memories except of what I already told you.
Raindrops put a hoof to her face.
Wait, are you telling me you regaled us with an overblown narrative and you don't even remember the important part? You know, the one where you actually saved the town? That does seem a little anticlimactic, mentioned Cheerilee. I was looking forward to learning how you managed to burn down a dam while drunk. Like, did you miscast a spell? What? Me? Miscast a spell? Not likely.
Trixie trailed off, as he got a raised eyebrow from Lyra, and quickly amended.
Well, possibly, but even if I had miscast some spell while drunk, I doubt I would have burned anything down. When a unicorn miscasts a spell, it tends to just fizzle out.
Or turn ponies into not ponies, muttered Lyra quietly, probably too quiet for any pony to hear.
On the off chance a spell has an effect when miscast, that effect would still be inside the school of the spell,
explained Trixie hastily.
Burning anything down would require an evocation spell. I don't know much evocation. It's pretty much the opposite of what I'm good at, illusion. I can't imagine a spell I could have cast that would have gone royal enough for a whole dam to burn down as a result. I don't even remember anything being on fire that night, I think.
You think? Raindrops hovered closer.
Just how much more do you remember about that night? Not a lot. I remember the mayor talking and taking me to the town's only building that wasn't a home, the tavern. There was singing, dancing. A pretty yellow mare kept giving me drinks.
Trixie's face scrunched up as she thought, dredging through the faint images in her mind, none of which contained any context with another.
There's nothing solid after that. I do recall something about a fire, but the strange thing is, I don't think it was a dam that was on fire. I seem to recall something else burning. Gah! I just can't remember what! Do you remember anything about that line in the song about the permits being faked?
Asked Carrot Top.
I remember when I got my farming license, it was pretty easy. I can't figure out why this lumber guild would need fake permits. Shouldn't they have had an easy time getting legitimate ones? Depends on who owned the land,
said Trixie, eyes staring up at the ceiling as she did battle with her memory, or lack thereof.
Land owned by a noble can be expensive, or cheap to get permits to build a land and farm, depending on the mood of the noble. I don't remember anything about the permits, though. If they had been forged, for whatever reason, then, however, I found out about it, it must have been simple in nature. If I was that drunk, I couldn't have figured out anything complicated.
I don't know. You seem pretty sharp when you get sloshed, and a lot more friendly, Lyra said, almost disturbingly friendly.
Trixie frowned. Yes, I've heard about that. There's a reason why I try not to get that drunk anymore, at least not in company. Oh, why not? I hear Lulamoon is a lot of fun, said Cheerilee. You should let her out more often. Cheerilee, I don't find the essence of the existence of this alter ego the least bit amusing. Oh, come on. You never even met her. She is me! Or anti-me. I don't even know what she is supposed to be. I just don't like that there's this weird split personality I get when I'm in Beeb, a little too much alcohol, and that this personality is more popular with my friends than I am. We like you just fine, Trixie,
Dissy said, coming over and putting a hoof on the blue unicorn's shoulder.
I've never met this other you either, and I'm perfectly fine with there just being one you. No need for alcohol. Two of you would probably be too much anyway. Thanks. I think,
said Trixie, giving Dizzy a small smile, before she glanced at the stairs that led to the second floor of her home.
In any case, we should get Bushel back down here. She's probably hungry. We let her eat, then hear what she has to say. I want to know just what is going on with Oaton this time.
It took a few tries to get Bushel to not wolf down her food and talk at the same time. Even then, the little filly focused a lot more on her plate of food than on answering their questions, and it was clear she was famished. Trixie felt a little ashamed of having stuffed her upstairs at first, instead of letting the filly eat. She just wanted to get her side of the story to her friends, without the filly around to hear about it. Bushel kept looking at her with those awe-filled eyes, and Trixie couldn't deny it felt good to be looked at like that. Besides, wouldn't it be rather prudish to damage a young filly's field point with something silly like the truth? And what was the truth, anyway? All Trixie remembered was going to Oaton, breaking up an argument, then getting quite drunk. Perhaps she was everything Bushel said about in that song, a hero who rescued a village from a certain starvation at the hooves of greedy ponies. Okay, so perhaps Trixie wasn't buying entirely into that. There were too many unanswered questions about that night for her to totally believe that everything had gone down exactly as described, and the song was pretty fake anyway. Still, why not let the filly have her hero for however long it lasted? After all, it was the duty of a performer to give her audience what they wanted, and Trixie was loath to disappoint an audience, whether it be a whole crowd or just one awestruck filly.
Well, my good young filly, have you finished eating?
Asked Trixie, after Bushel had devoured the last of the meal, and the filly nodded enthusiastically.
Mm-hmm. Is there any more? That was really good.
Trixie gave Carrot Top a questioning sidelong glance, and the farmer pony smiled and gave a wink.
I think I could whip up some dessert pretty quick.
As Carrot Top went back into the kitchen, Trixie returned her attention to Bushel.
Now then,
Trixie began,
please tell the great and powerful Trixie what trouble has befallen your humbled village.
She noticed Raindrops roll her eyes, and Dizzy gave a quirk of eyebrow, as she leaned over to Cheerilee and whispered,
She really likes that title, doesn't she?
Trixie didn't hear Cheerilee's response, as Bushel practically began to shout at 100 miles a minute.
It's horrible! Everything was fine until a month ago when that stupid dumb lumberkill came back and they never lost it until they started rebuilding the town and it just burned up. And then they got the sheriff from Bilesville telling my pa that their permits all this good time and that there's nothing he could do even though the lumberkill was a big mean basilisk that lives in the forest. Oh, wait. A basilisk?
Trixie asked, eyes wide, but Bushel just kept right on going.
And it's already turned Mr. and Mrs. Thresher into stuff, but the sheriff won't do anything about it. Nobody's allowed to leave town because it's too dangerous. Oh, we end up beating up all the lumberkill ponies. You gotta slay the basilisk. There'd be no so cool connect us, right? But he needs help to stop the lumberkill first. That's the most important part of all. Even though they all got these fancy cars wearing livers or something, I bet you can take care of all of them, no problem.
Livers? Trixie was starting to get a very uncomfortable feeling about all of this.
Some kind of fancy getup. That's what my pa said they were wearing anyway.
Livery, Trixie said, trying not to gulp. These weren't just hired goons Bushel was describing then, but noble, appointed guards wearing the colors of whoever hired them. Trixie put on a confident smile she wasn't quite feeling.
Bushel, could you describe what the guards were wearing? You've seen them, right?
Bushel frowned.
Yeah. Them bullies marched right through the town and caused a big ruckus at the tavern. Didn't pay for anything. Said we dirt farmers ought to be glad we let them run a tab. But I got a good look at 'em. Their livers were all bright blue with 3 red fish on 'em. How lame is that? Why would some pony wear something that dull looking? Because it shows what nobility you work for.
Trixie thought grimly, as he scoured her brain for what she knew of equestrian heraldry. This situation was becoming a lot more complicated than she hoped. Basilisks were uncommon anywhere outside the northernmost regions of the land, and they were an endangered species to boot. It was a little wonder the sheriff of the area would have been hesitant to round up a hunting party to deal with the beast. More so, as she was already paid off by the lumber guild to look the other way. But of much greater concern with these guards. If they were working for a noble, then that meant the Lumber Guild was now operating with noble backing, which probably meant their permits were legit this time. That was going to make things far more difficult.
Light blue with 3 red fish. Red fish. That would be the Copper Coin family. Counts now. Great! This is going to involve going up against the Count. Well, I already have a Duke on my list of enemies. Compared to that, a Count's not too bad.
Taking a deep breath and drawing herself up into what she imagined was an appropriately confident stance, Trixie smiled at Bushel, getting into her performance as he imagined how suitably heroic figure might walk.
Very well! I have heard all I need to hear. Fear not, my good filly. Rest assured that the great and powerful Trixie shall not leave the folk of Oaton to face this peril alone. I shall accompany you back to your village with all due haste, and do everything within my not inconsiderable power.
Oh, Raindrops was giving her a very unpleasant look.
Mostly formidable power to rid Oaton of that which impels it!
Whenever her friends fought her for performance, the filly was enjoyed. Bushel was practically jumping with excitement and reattached herself to Trixie's leg.
I knew you would! I mean, I wasn't worried at all that you might have more important things to do. Nope, not at all. Now my pa will have to forgive me for...
Bushel blinked at her own words, then seriously squeaked.
Bushel?
Dizzy said, coming over and leaning to look the filly in the eyes. Trixie had seen those eyes before. They were the mom's there, and a possibly powerful technique which no foal had a chance of keeping secrets.
Honey, it's not nice to keep things from adults. We want to help, but there's something you're not telling us. You really, really need to.
Bushel's jaw worked soundlessly for a moment, save for a few tiny squeaks. But the mom's stare continued to bore into her, and the filly's willpower soon crumbled as she looked at the ground and stepped a hoof on the floor, as he said,
I might have come to find the Hero of Oaton against my pa's wishes. He didn't want any pony to leave in the village, even though a whole bunch of us wanted to come to find Trixie.
I'm going to stab a guess and say that's probably because of the basilisk, said Cheerilee. If you've got something like that loose running around, it wouldn't be safe to travel.
Mm-hmm.
Bushel verified.
Pa said he couldn't risk any pony else getting turned to stone. He was real mad at me when I insisted we come find Trixie, and grounded me when I argued with him.
And you snuck out of town and came looking for her anyway, concluded Raindrops, shaking her head. That was stupidly dangerous, but I kind of admired the dedication. How old are you?
11!
Bushel proclaimed proudly.
Practically full grown. I can handle a long walk, and I'm not scared of any dumb lizard.
She wilted a bit, though, and her ears flattened on her head.
Though it was kind of scary, seeing Mr. and Mrs. Thresher like that. They weren't just stone. They were frozen with their faces all screwed up, like they were hurting or something. Does getting turned to stone hurt? I'm sure they'll be all right,
Dizzy said comfortably.
There's cures for being turned to stone like that.
Dizzy glanced at Trixie, and Trixie realized the Pegasus was looking for some confirmation.
Yes, it happens being petrified can be cured with the right spells. I could probably do it myself, with enough time to study the spells in question. I'll bring a spell book with those spells when we leave.
So, we're doing this then. We're going to Oaton? Asked Raindrops.
Well,
Trixie looked among her friends.
I'm going. My assistant can take care of things for me here for a few days. And I can't really say no to a plea like this. It wouldn't be the heroic thing to do.
Given the circumstances, few would have likely blamed her as she decided to deny Bushel's request, and instead tried to take care of the matter through third parties. Her influence was minimal at best as representative in Ponyville, but she could still write some letters, make some inquiries, and try to solve the whole problem from her desk. She could write the sheriff of Bridlesville to try and encourage him to round up a posse to hunt the basilisk, though there might be some kind of legal issues coming up with it being an endangered creature. Trixie wasn't up to her law code involving such environmental affairs, and tried to get what few contacts she did have in Canterlot to investigate this lumber guild. But none of that would be very heroic. It'd probably crush whatever image Bushel had of her, certainly. A performer gives their audience what they want. It was one of the first rules of the stage. She might not be quite the hero from the song, but she could play the role well enough, she thought. Raindrops was looking at Trixie with an expression Trixie had trouble reading. The yellow Pegasus had her forehead crossed, as she hovered a little off the ground, eyes only slightly narrowed. It made Trixie nervous, getting that look. Raindrops was doing a lot better these days at her anger management issues, but the Pegasus still had a way with displaying her displeasure that made Trixie's jaw ache even months after the fact. It was clear Raindrops was not thrilled with Trixie's act so far. At length, Raindrops let out a sigh.
All right, I'm coming with you then. Can you? I mean, your job with the Weather Patrol,
Trixie began.
I got a few days off I could take. I usually work other pony shifts when they get sick, so I got a little leeway with my time off. Rainbow Dash has been shockingly less lazy this past week, so I think I can afford to spend a few days away. Things probably won't fall apart. I wish I could go, but I'm still scheduled for full shifts the next 3 days,
Dizzy said apologetically.
Y'all know I'm pretty busy with the farm, but if you want me to come help, I will,
said Carrot Top as he brought out some scones she had been baking, while everybody else had been talking. She set the plate of still steaming pastries on the table in front of the couch.
Actually, it's probably best if only a few of us go, said Trixie. I don't want you neglecting your farm, Carrot Top. Honestly, me and Raindrops are probably enough for this.
You sure? Lyra said, folding a scone to her mouth and munching away. I don't know what I could do to help, but
if you want it, you got it. I'm sure. There's no real point to a bunch of us going. Numbers won't make a difference in a situation like this,
said Trixie, glad for the offers, but feeling pretty sure that this was a matter she was probably going to have to solve mostly herself.
Well, I'm definitely going,
piped in Cheerilee, which caused Trixie to go over to school teacher in surprise.
Wait, what? Don't you have, school to teach?
3-day weekend, said Cheerilee.
It's Birds and Bees Day on Monday, so no school. It's, what? Birds and Bees Day. National holiday declared 230 years ago by Princess Luna to celebrate the middle of spring. It gives certain ponies quality time together. Kind of a smaller cousin to Hearts and Hooves Day. That's not a thing. You're making that up,
Trixie said, almost certain she had never heard of this holiday before.
Actually, she's not,
said Lyra, coughing politely.
Me and Bonbon. Well, let's just say I'd offered to come with you, but I'm pretty glad you declined. Bonbon would have been less than thrilled if I was out of town this weekend.
Trixie couldn't help but agree. Bonbon, Lyra's mare friend, was tied with Raindrops on Trixie's list of ponies she didn't want mad at her.
Still doesn't sound like a real holiday,
Trixie said under her breath. You just haven't heard of it because you've never... Lyra started, but Trixie's cut her off.
9 point! Yay, Cheerilee has time off and can come with me. This conversation can now move on to other things. More important things that have nothing to do with anything involving me and talking me about that ever again!
Trixie had a particularly dark side and read its purple for the moment, and was more than willing to let slide asking Cheerilee more about why the school teacher even wanted to come along this venture. Aside from just wanting to help a friend, she couldn't imagine a motivation for the usually fairly indifferent school teacher to come. No matter. While the paranoid part of Trixie wanted to ask further questions, she trusted her friend's judgment here.
So, it's going to be just the 3 of us then?
Rachel said. When do we leave?
Tomorrow morning,
Trixie said, and his muscles shuffled nervously. Trixie looked to the filly questioningly.
Should we go right now? I'm not tired or anything. We could get there in a day if we leave now, Fussel said. There's no rush. We're not walking after all. We'll take the train to the way station. Much faster. Besides, I need to prepare a few things tonight that can help me help your village.
Trixie leaned down in front of Fussel, speaking softly, and dropping the pretense of acting like a hero. What she was about to say next wasn't acting, after all. Just Trixie being rare for her. Honest.
Don't worry. Whatever else happens, I give you my word as a representative of the Night Court. I will do everything I can to help Oaton.
This seemed to be enough for Bushel, because he nodded just slowly, looking a little more relaxed. By now, The evening had become late, and the sun was setting.
Looking at her friends, Trixie said, "Does anypony have space for Bushel to sleep tonight?" "I could sleep here. You could tell me stories about your other adventures. I bet you got dozens of them,"
Bushel said, before any of Trixie's friends could answer.
Well, I have only the one bed," Trixie said. "I don't mind. I always share my bed with my little brother and sister. I'm used to it." "That's not what I meant. I mean, I'm going to be very busy tonight with some preparations for tomorrow. I'll need to be able to concentrate completely on my work, which I do best when alone." "Oh,"
Bushel said, head drooping.
"So you can stay with me tonight,"
said Cheerilee.
"I don't have a guest bed or anything, but I don't mind sharing. I have some things I'd like to ask Bushel about anyway."
"You do?" asked Trixie, raising an eyebrow.
"Nothing big. Just a few things I want to clear up before we leave for Oaton. I'll let you know if anything important comes out of it. You just focus on your heroic preparations,"
Cheerilee said with a wink. One by one, Trixie's friends filed out of her house. Bushel going with Cheerilee, and already assaulting the school teacher with a barrage of questions about the Hero of Oaton's life in Ponyville. Raindrops was the last to leave. I turned to face Trixie as they stood in the doorway. "How long do you plan to keep that act up?" the Pegasus asked straightforward, staring at Trixie.
"I don't
know what you mean," was what Trixie was going to say, out of habit if nothing else, but saw the seriousness in her friend's eyes and continued.
"Want to break a filly's dream by hitting her with the truth, all right? She clearly thinks I'm a hero, so why shouldn't I play the part? Besides, technically we are going to save her town."
"Can you guarantee that?" Raindrops asked, putting her face close to Trixie's, uncomfortably so, and Trixie took an involuntary step back. "Can you guarantee we're going to save our town? I saw that look on your face when you heard about the guards in the livery. You're not half as confident about our chances as you were putting it on to Bushel."
"And what would you have me say? Sorry, kid, your town's probably screwed this time around?"
"No!" the Pegasus admitted, backing out slightly, but still keeping her stare fixed on Trixie. "But I'm not liking this. That filly at least needs to know the truth about how hard this is probably going to be. We're not just going to fly in there and kick out a legitimate business operation, even if they are a bunch of jerks."
"I know that. However, there's something about this situation that doesn't seem right. No matter how legitimate this lumber guild's actions are, there's something very suspicious about their being in Oaton again. I mean, if they had taken a hit before for being there illegally, how did they recover within just a year, then come right on back? And why would a basilisk suddenly be in the forest? Wouldn't trying to cut lumber in a place that has such a monster in it be far too dangerous to be worth the trouble? No. I can tell there's something up with all this, and I intend to find out what. I may not be a hero like it says in the song, but I'm certainly a representative of the Night Court. I have a duty to protect the ponies of Equestria, don't I?"
"Oh, so this is about duty then, and not just, say, getting attention and praises of a whole town that thinks you're a hero?"
"Okay, maybe there's a little of that going on, but still, it's not like I don't deserve a little praise, right? I did save Equestria for Corona with help. Yes, you're right. I know that. And I get what you're trying to say here, Raindrops. I do. I won't let this get blown out of proportion. I'm going to Oaton to help out with it however I can, not pump up my ego. That's the truth."
Raindrops looked at Trixie for several long moments. At length, Raindrops said, "I suppose you have preparations to do. What kind, if you don't mind telling me that much?" Glad for the change in subject, Trixie said,
"I've been working on a few things since Corona, actually. Branching out from illusion spells for one, and learning how to more permanently layer enchantments on items. I want us to be prepared for as many contingencies as possible, and that means finding ways to keep my friends safe. Most of what I've been doing is still in the developmental stages, admittedly, but I have some ready by morning. Items I can enchant to do certain things. I'll show you tomorrow."
"Fine. Just remember to get some sleep. And I'm sorry if I sound like I'm coming down on you." Trixie rubbed the back of her head. "I just don't want to see you take a hard fall because you set yourself too high on a pedestal."
"I'll be careful. Besides, With you along, I can't imagine I get very far in putting myself on a pedestal without you pulling me back down to earth.
Damn straight, Raindrops said with a small, rueful smile. With that, the two friends parted with a final exchange of good nights, Trixie waiting until the Pegasus had flown out of view before going back into her home. The door behind her was slammed with a breath of magic. Now left to her own devices, Trixie steeled herself for a long night. Despite what Raindrops said, it was highly unlikely Trixie was going to get much sleep. But as she started to get out the proper materials and review in her mind the spells she'd need, she reflected that she never read about a hero that slept when there was work that needed to be done.